I'm just curious what startups are doing these days. Are you guys fully remote? Do you have an office somewhere?
You don't think I look put together enough to be in an office right now?
I'm sorry to wake you up at 11 a.m. for this.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.
What is up, everybody? I am Jason Trost, the host of Business of Betting podcast. I am back in London for episode 222, which is a pretty amazing legacy from this podcast. I can't believe we're at 222. Today, I'm joined with Dean Sisun, who's the CEO and co-founder of ProphetX. We're going to get into that. It was a guest, formerly part of ProphetX. Welcome to the pod, Dean.
Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, of course. It looks like I might have woken you up a little bit. What's your morning routine look like?
My morning routine, 7:30 wake up. I'm one of those people that just kind of spring right out of bed. So I've been up for like a good hour and a half. I've been
Did you do Pilates or anything? What was it?
No. I haven't gotten a haircut in a little while. I think maybe that could be part of the problem. I also gave up as of 2 weeks ago. I got through phases where I stopped drinking coffee. So that could also be part of the problem. I don't know. This is all good feedback, though. Thank you.
Do you cut out the whiskey as well, or just coffee?
No, just the coffee.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. Basically, for those of you that aren't familiar, ProphetX is a betting exchange that launched in New Jersey, I'm not sure how long ago, a couple years ago, and they have pivoted to the sweepstakes model. So like probably most listeners, I've heard about this model. I don't understand it at all. And so I'm very curious to learn with you guys what it's all about. So why don't you talk about, I guess, the status quo?
Yeah.
So you guys founded a few years ago. You launched in New Jersey. So take us up to date. So what happened?
We launched even prior to New Jersey in the UK. I was living in London for a year and a half, operating our exchange out there. Initially, we went with a more secondary marketplace approach. Picture a digital prop swap. That was the idea. And we quickly realized that Betfair and SmartKits did it way better than us. We're solving a bit of a pain point here, but not the full pain point. Why don't we try to bring this idea to the US? And then we asked ourselves, why doesn't it exist in the US? So we started looking into that. At the same time, New Jersey and Colorado and other states were just getting off the ground for sports betting. It was just really picking up. This is 2019. And then COVID happened and brought me back to the US. And then we really started looking into the U.S. betting exchange. How can we do it? How can we make it happen? We raised money behind that dream. We worked with New Jersey for a very long time, over a year, to get our betting exchange live there. We operated there for about 2 years. And ultimately, we decided we needed to make a switch. I'll say the regulatory model isn't very conducive to startups. You need a lot of capital. Especially exchanges that rely on, I'll say, network effects and liquidity. We needed a lot of capital to make it happen. We needed a lot of time to make it happen because states weren't familiar with exchanges. We had to get them educated. It took months and months to get our product live. On top of that, all the economics aren't great in the United States. So we said we need to make a switch somehow. And we stumbled upon sweepstakes. Now I will say that industry has its own set of unique challenges as opposed to the regulatory model, but that's how we ended up where we're at right now.
Cool. So before we get into the sweepstakes stuff, I think it'd be nice to do a little bit of a postmortem because I think your case is interesting from a few perspectives. One, obviously, I'm passionate about betting exchanges and would like to see that model succeed. So I'm curious why that didn't succeed. The second thing I think your use case is interesting in is I think one of the side effects of shitty regulation in the US is it makes it a lot harder for startups to survive because the costs are higher, et cetera, et cetera. And so this sort of regulation arbitrage game ends up incentivizing incumbents to make more money and it makes it harder for startups. So why don't you dive a little bit more into the economics and why it was tough for you to get going to New Jersey?
I will start by saying I completely understand where regulators are coming from, right? Like they are, I put myself in their shoes, and I think they're doing a pretty good job at it because they are maximizing the amount of money they can bring to their state from the players that are out there and also trying to protect the consumer. So I get it. But it does come at the sacrifice of innovation, right? And that's why, me and you are frustrated. The model didn't survive. I have a couple of theories of why, you guys, Smarkets and Betfair, were more successful. Part of it is regulation, right? The U.S. is very fragmented. And typically we think of, it's fragmented, liquidity will suffer. Yes, that's the case. But in our case, I found that the actually speed to each market was the real killer. And then the liquidity was second, and I'll explain. So in New Jersey, our best month, we did 22 million, 25 million of handle, which is not bad in one state, one tiny little betting exchange with barely a marketing budget or a promotional budget, right? Like most of these sports books have. But the problem was we couldn't get into more states. And we couldn't get into more states because, one, it was expensive to get into these states. The way the regulatory model is set up in most states is that either you need to spend a lot of money up front on licensing fees to the state, or you need to go and partner with a land-based casino or a racetrack, depending on how the laws are written in those states. And then those racetracks or casinos charge you up front a pretty exorbitant fee for a startup, right? For a DraftKings or a FanDuel, it's a drop in the ocean. So you pile all that in, you pile in the time it takes to launch in each market, and then you pile the tax rate on top of that. And as a very high volume, low margin product, you are playing catch up right out of the gate, right? And because you can only launch in so many states, you don't get the network effects from being in numerous states. That, in my opinion, is why the model didn't survive. I also, I came into this thinking one state, we can easily build a betting exchange in one state. There's 8-9 million people in New Jersey. You look at the handle, there's $1.5 billion in handle every month. How can an exchange carve out a sliver? And I think it didn't take off the way, Betfair initially did in the UK, because our markets are, let's be real, built around NFL, right? Like that's where all of the popularity is. That's where the volume is. And Betfair was built around horse racing. And the reason that it's easier and I think more attractive to play in a horse racing market is because the VIG in the horse racing market to start is 35%. And Betfair chopped it down to about 100 or 6-7% with their commission baked in. That is a huge jump in the odds. So you're seeing horses that are 30 to 1 up to 40, 50 to 1, right? That's
You're talking
really attractive.
Betfair UK, right? Not
I'm talking
Betfair New
Betfair
Jersey.
UK, not Betfair New
Betfair
Jersey.
launched the New Jersey exchange for horse racing,
Right?
But which
right.
they have since shut
which
down.
they took away, right? But horse racing was the most popular sport in the UK, right? And in the US, we're out there touting a price of -110 to -102, which is attractive for a lot of players, but not all of the casuals in the world, right? They would rather just stick to their sports book, stick to their parlays. So I think it was a big package, but ultimately I don't think that pitch was loud enough for just one state. And then for the aforementioned reasons I stated prior, I don't think that the regulatory model is conducive to a startup like us.
Okay, so to get very specific, like what is it about the regulatory? Are you talking about your limit to go into different states, or are you talking about the overhead of complying with New Jersey?
I think it's both, right? If you stripped away the licensing fees and the tax rate and the upfront partnership costs with the land-based casino we were with, we'd be close to breaking even. We weren't quite there, but we'd be very close. But with it all piled in, we were burning a lot of money, right? And, as a startup, you have to show that you're having traction, that the dream is there, and you have to have a plan of how you're going to scale this. And, if you're stuck in one state, the plan is pretty hard to sell. So on the state expansion side, yes, that was an issue, but I think that's secondary to the state expansion side. A lot of states, and a lot of credit to New Jersey, they were willing to listen to us from day one. They were willing to bring this product in. A lot of states didn't care to listen to us. And a lot of states also just really took their time. And what that led to was us having to make a decision, right? We couldn't just wait around for these states to deploy the exchange model because we would just be lingering in New Jersey where we couldn't get to break even.
And what about the novelty factor? Like from the outside looking in, and even though I'm American, you have way more experience in the American market than I do. New Jersey's right next to New York City. There's a ton of financial services people, if not outright traders. Like why? What about the novelty? Like, did you see that translate into customers or not really?
Definitely. But what we would see is peaks and valleys of those customers, right? Like if they lived in New York or worked in New York, if they took a vacation, right? You can only play if you're in the state of New Jersey. So you constantly saw the same people come and go. And at first we couldn't really figure it out. We were like, is it something wrong with our product? Do people not like this? But when you just reach out and talk to these people, you realize, oh, right, they're real people with real lives. They're going on vacation. They have to go to work. They're dealing with a family issue, right? So when you're only in one state, as opposed to like DraftKings isn't 30, if I'm traveling around the country, I can play DraftKings in most states. I couldn't do that with Prophet. So the New York crowd, tough to nail down.
To your point about that as well, with NFL having 16, 18 games this season, I don't know what it is anymore, but it's not that many Sundays that they play NFL, whereas horse racing, there's horse races 354 days out of the year, there's a horse race. So like it's the sport is built for sports betting and lends itself nicely for a sports betting calendar. I don't know how close you are with sport trade and that, but what's your sort of prognostication for the viability of this model going forward in the U.S.?
It's a great question. I will say that the land-based casino fees are coming down. So because the market's getting smaller, a lot of players have dropped out. There's a lot less demand for these quote-unquote licenses, right? So the market access fees are dropping pretty substantially. Granted, we haven't been in the market for a handful of months now, but this is what I've heard. And that makes it a little more viable. But in Sport Trade's case, they took a slightly different approach and they didn't beat the exchange model into each state regulator's head. Instead, they went with more of a low vig sportsbook model is how I interpret it, where there's no requesting your own price. There's no asking for an offer. It's just taking the price that the market makers that they have on site are offering the customer. So slightly different, right? Like we said, we're not going to do that. Our distinct, unique selling prop is that you can request your own price. We didn't want to give that up. So we went different routes. The viability, look, I don't know their numbers. I don't know if they are profit sharing with their market makers, right? I can't speculate on that. But what I can say is the way I modeled it out when I was looking at our numbers is we needed at least 6 states to get to break even, and we needed at least a year in all of those 6 states to get there, at least a football season and then basketball season to get there in each state. So that would take a lot of time. You're burning a lot of money before you get there, and probably need to raise some more money. Can you raise some more money in this market? Can you raise money with the numbers that you have coming in? Is each state going to be as susceptible to a betting exchange as New Jersey was? There were a lot of questions. So I don't want to fully speculate on their model, but I think it would be pretty tough viability-wise.
Cool. So sweepstakes, I know just the headlines about it, but my understanding is each state has regulation for prizes that sort of falls under a quote-unquote sweepstakes, where basically you pay money in order for the chance to win something. And some innovative sports betting companies have decided that this can also work for sports betting. So why don't you tee that up for the audience and then talk about your journey to trying to follow that model?
I will do my best to explain sweepstakes in practical terms, that I'll talk about how we're following that model. So gambling is made up of 3 components in the letter of the law. There's prize, chance, and consideration. The highlight of sweepstakes is that there's no consideration at play. Now, a sweepstakes, and there's a whole industry in the social casino space built around the sweepstakes letter of the law. However, there's also, prior to that, the McDonald's of the world offering sweepstakes, right? Enter this sweepstakes to win a car. You get a free entry, no purchase necessary. This language probably sounds familiar to you. Oh, by the way, if you buy a Big Mac, you get another entry into the sweepstakes, right? That's the way the model works. The casino space figured out 14 years ago or so that you can apply that form to a social casino. So you can play slot machines for free, no purchase necessary to play, or you can purchase more promotional currency and get sweepstakes currency as a result, and thus play in the sweepstakes that they're offering, aka real money slot machines, right? You have the possibility to redeem real money prizes. That's the idea. You can also earn prizes by, getting daily bonuses, by logging in, by entering a social media contest, whatever it may be. And then lastly, there's the alternative method of entry to play where a user can write basically a postcard into the company and get a free entry, again, into the sweepstakes that day or whatever they define as the period. That is the form. Now, I will caveat this with, I did not know about any of this until this year, right? Like this is still a little new to me, and I find it to be fascinating, quite honestly. However, I saw a lot of companies pop up as we were operating Prophet. I saw a Chumba Casino hit me with an ad like 3 or so years ago, and I was like, what in the world is this? Like, it's not iGaming regulated. Like, how does this work? But I kind of brushed it off. I started to see more poker sites, bingo sites pop up. I saw Fliff as a sports book pop up. Once Fliff popped up, that really caught my attention, right? Because that was more or less an indirect or direct competitor to us. And I saw that, how do I want to put this? Fliff was having a lot of articles written about them, and I started digging into it a little more. And this was roughly around the time that, I said earlier on this pod that I didn't think Prophet would be able to survive as a regulatory model. So we were looking for other options. And that's when we started to dig into, shortly after that, can we possibly turn Prophet around into a social sports book or social betting exchange platform where it operates under a sweepstakes model as opposed to the way we're operating now. And granted, we would have to make a lot of changes, which I'll go into, but that's kind of how it all came to be. And that is my knowledge on sweepstakes. Now, with our new products, our new platform, if you've ever logged in, there's a free-to-play side of the app, which is crucial to the social sportsbook, social betting exchange model, where users can come in and play for free. Now, I was skeptical at first if people would use our free-to-play product, but a lot of people are. A lot of people like to practice their strategies, I'll call it, for free on our site. And there's no, going back to what I was talking about before, the three elements of gambling: prize, chance, consideration. There's no prize there. You're just playing for free, right? So it doesn't qualify as gambling. And if you want to enter the sweepstakes, you have to purchase more promotional currency to play on the free-to-play side. And as a result, you can get bonus sweepstakes currency, which then lets you play for real money prizes. And then you get to play it for the other ways for free as well. So anyway, there's a lot to unpack there, but I'll pause there because sweepstakes is definitely a complicated topic.
So I think I'm sort of following along, but I guess my main emotional reaction is it just sounds like too good to be true, where you basically can, because sports betting, as long as I've known until the repeal of PASPA, like it was just sort of like a third rail of American law. Like thou shalt not place a bet on sports. Rest in peace, Pete Rose. Pete Rose is a big name. When I was a kid, baseball was the main sport. Pete Rose was one of the big names in baseball. And what did he get done for? Like sports betting and the evilness that sports betting can cause. Blah blah blah. Anyway, it just sounds too good to be true that the same legal mechanism of which I can play Monopoly at McDonald's by buying a Big Mac is the same one that you can kind of shoehorn a sports bet into it. Like, what am I missing? Is it too good to be true? Or is it the vagueness of the law allows this to happen and it'll get shut down once the legislatures clock onto this?
I thought the same thing you did, honestly. I was like, this is a little too good to be true. Because on the surface, it looks and feels, the same as Fliff and DraftKings look and feel the same on the surface. But when you get under the hood, you realize they are distinctively different. And the model is very different. So, I was talking about people entering in for free into our sweepstakes contest, right? Like, you can't underestimate how popular that is. You also can't underestimate how popular the free-to-play side is. People practicing on our site. So it's almost like two completely different target markets is what I've learned in a very short period of time. As for it's too good to be true, yes, the benefit is you get to launch in more states. We don't have to go through the time suck that it would take to go through the regulatory model in each state. We don't have to pay the upfront fee to the casinos. But there are other costs in there, like I was talking about, like the alternative method of entry, daily bonusing, stuff like that. But I think the best way I think about it is the form is sweepstakes, letter of the law, right? And the substance, even if you look at casinos or poker sites or bingo sites or sports books or whatever it may be, the substance is more, those specific type of products. So there are things we need to follow, and I'll say target markets that pop up that are not similar to a regulated betting market whatsoever because of the way our form works. Because you could play for free, because you are not directly purchasing sweepstakes currency, because you're purchasing promotional currency on the free-to-play side and being bonused, up to our discretion on the sweepstakes side, because you can get free bonuses to play on the free-to-play and sweepstakes side. It's almost like two completely different worlds, even though on the surface, they look and feel almost exactly the same.
So I get the idea of like you have the free-to-play. I get that. But like how can you step me through how your sweepstake maps to a sports bet? I had a chance to check out ProphetX, but I'm assuming I can go back to Eagles on Sunday, right? I can play, I don't know what lingo you want me to use, but I can enter the contest for the Eagles to win, and I assume I can buy points, ProphetX points, to play, and I presume that this game I'm playing happens to have a ratio of points to winning points, and then how do I get money out? Like, how do I get my prize? How does that mechanic work?
Like I was talking about before, you're purchasing promotional currency, right? You are purchasing profit points if you want to play more, I will say. And the way the real money side works is when I purchase this promotional currency, we need to bonus you sweepstakes currency. So if we bonus you said sweepstakes currency, like you said, there is a ratio of it, and it scales up or down based on how much you're purchasing. Then you can go in and play in the sweepstakes, right? Similar to, I don't know if you've ever seen any of these social casino sites or bingo sites. No. So that's how you do it. So if I log on to ProphetX, I see there's the free-to-play side. There's also the sweepstakes side of our site. I log into the free-to-play side. I go lay out my free-to-play plays. I go purchase my more promotional currency. If I want to play more, I'm bonused by ProphetX in sweepstakes currency. That is worth nothing. If you try to take it out of your balance, you can't. There are requirements that you have to fulfill in order to redeem those prizes, which is part of the sweepstakes. And then you go enter into those sweepstakes contests, right? If you want to go, you call it placing a bet. You want to go back the Eagles +7. You can then go do that on either side, right? So that's the form of it, if that makes sense. So, like I said, it looks and feels just like a betting exchange, just like a sports book. The casino side looks and feels just like iGaming. It all looks and feels pretty much the same, but underneath the hood, the model of how it's distributed is completely different.
It quacks like a duck. So I'm assuming these prizes can be redeemed for not T-shirts for Chuck E. Cheese or something, but for cash, I guess, right? You can have a cash prize.
Yep. That's the way it works right now with us. We've toyed around with those ideas, but I mean, look, we're a startup. The most basic way to get this off the ground right now is to redeem it for cash.
I have memories of going to Chuck E. Cheese trying to figure out how to rig the whack-a-mole game to spit out as many tickets as it can to go get free candy at the end of the thing. Okay, so I assume this is a state law issue. Is this like legal in like 47 out of 50 states kind of thing? Or is this a 50 out of 50? How does that work?
So it is legal, per our opinion, in 45 states plus DC. However, we've made the internal decision not to operate in some states because some states either have asked us maybe more questions than we want, or some states have a history of not being so kind to social casinos and sweepstakes sites. So we've decided to not enter those states. So legal in 45 plus DC, but we're in less.
Got it. And I know that Novig did a similar pivot, and you name checked Fliff. Like, how many companies are roughly in this, not the sort of social casino side, but more in the sports betting side? How many are in the sweepstakes sports betting world?
I've seen, in addition to Fliff 3, there's Rebet, Sportsino, Thrills, and then there's Novig, who's a competitor to us. I don't know if there's anyone else right now, but I suspect if we do well, and if the other sportsbooks, the social sportsbooks out there do well, I suspect there will be a lot more copycats. Everyone is flooding into the casino world right now, the social casino space, as opposed to our side.
And when you're looking to pivot the model, did you think about, because I know some startups have taken the perspective that peer-to-peer isn't, if you do true peer-to-peer, that doesn't really count as regulated sports betting. Did you look at that at all?
Oh, yeah. I looked at it all, Jason. I looked at everything we could possibly...
What's your take on that model?
I think I'm biased because I'm so passionate that there's no way that constitutes legal gambling. But the challenge that we had was we couldn't get the sport out of the definition of the Wire Act, I believe. Like, because people were trading against each other on sporting outcomes, like we couldn't extract the sporting outcome out of the definition. And that was the most challenging part. Like, everything we tried was, people trading against each other in this game of skill, but with wagers. And wager, by definition, as a legal definition, that constitutes gambling. So that was the wall we kept running into there. I banged my fist against the table as much as I possibly could until I was no longer being heard. But, unfortunately, I am wrong.
Cool. And before I let you go, are you guys a remote company? I'm just curious what startups are doing these days. Are you guys fully remote? Do you have an office somewhere?
You don't think I look put together enough to be in an office right now?
I'm sorry to wake you up at 11 a.m. for this.
No, we're fully remote. I actually just moved to Florida, be close to my parents, but the rest of our team is in the New York, New Jersey area still.
And everybody's remote.
Everyone's fully remote right now.
And how are you giving those inspirational speeches? Do you have everybody jump on the Zoom? And
Zoom is a powerful tool, man. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, rally the troops over Zoom. No, we all communicate Slack, video.
Where'd you go to and where'd you land in Florida?
I'm in Miami.
Got it. Just real quick, but I've heard, Miami was hot and it's kind of cool. Do you kind of feel that? I guess you just got there, but is it overhyped or underhyped, Miami?
3 years ago, a lot of people were coming down here, right? I know what you're talking about in the VC world, also in the sports tech world. I've only been here, I think, less than 2 weeks. So
okay. So you're fresh off the boat.
I can't tell yet, but I think you are right. It's definitely cooled down. A lot less people are coming here in droves from, I think that was like a post-COVID thing, and now it's calmed down.
Well, thanks for jumping on and talking about kind of a topic du jour, sweepstakes betting. I know it's kind of it's an exploding space, and I'm very curious to see how it shakes out. I'm skeptical it'll sort of survive the test of the legislature, but who knows? I've been wrong before, and I wish you all the success. I really, in all sincerity, I wish that this industry facilitated more companies like you, like startups who are trying to do something innovative, push the envelope. All this regulation, although well-intentioned, I think has the effect of making it harder and harder for startups. And you were talking about why did SmartKits make it? I think one of the reasons we made it was we got into this industry before the heavy regulation came on.
Yep.
So we didn't have huge expenses for, the KYC, AML, responsible gambling stuff we have to do is so expensive. I would say we're easily paying 6 figures a month to just stay compliant with all those things. And I think I was lucky in the timing sense, but I hope companies like...
All right, I was going to say, picture like a startup coming in now into the UK GC and having to front those costs. Like, that's basically what we were dealing with, right? It was really challenging. So that was a really good point.
Yeah, very sympathetic to that, and wish you guys the best and keep trying to push the envelope. So thanks for coming by, Dean.
Thanks, Jason.
Cheers.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.